Hi, I'm Reilly Ernst, the podcast coordinator for Crave the Sound. In this week's episode of Crave the Podcast, Katie Hirasaki will be interviewing David B. Together, they will be breaking down the song Girl from Spain, a new song off of David's new EP, Bummer of a Summer. Enjoy!
Hi, you're listening to the Crave the Podcast?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
Sweet.
I can say this better. You're listening to Crave the Podcast. I'm Katie Hirasaki, and I'm going to be talking to artists and getting into the feelings behind their music. Today, I'm talking to David B. about his song Girl from Spain off the Bummer of a Summer EP. Hi, David. How's it going?
Hello, it's going great.
Would you be able to just introduce yourself a little bit and tell us about your music?
My name is David B. I'm an artist based out of Boulder. Grew up in Littleton, which is like an hour away, so not too far. I started making music about a year ago. Well, I started making music a long time before that. I started releasing music about a year ago, and not sure how to describe the genre. I guess like indie, folk, jazz inspired. I don't just call it indie.
I feel like indie fits. I feel like
Yeah,
indie, it's just like so broad.
a
but,
nice
like, I
umbrella
feel like
term.
everything just, yeah.
It's
You can
got
call it
guitars,
indie.
but it's not heavy, so it works.
It's got guitars.
It's the only box you need to check, if even.
Yeah, I think that's the important one. So you recently released your first EP, Bummer of a Summer. Just to start out, could you tell me just a little bit about like your inspirations behind that and like the themes of the EP in general?
No, I absolutely can. The biggest one in terms of just like making a big project and putting it out there and releasing it would have to be Mac DeMarco. Just because, he records all of his stuff in his garage, all by himself, and he makes great music out of it. And I figured if he can do it, I can at least try to do half of what he does, And so I got a microphone, I got everything I needed. I recorded Loner Now in January of last year, released that. And then September of this year, I released The Bummer of a Summer. I made 4 songs for that. I made a lot more than 4, but I only released 4. There's like B-sides on SoundCloud, I think. So Mac DeMarco was the biggest inspiration. And in terms of the subject matter of the EP, I wanted it to be something really light, None of the songs on the EP are going to make you cry. Like, they're not supposed to. They're supposed to be something nice you can put on and like maybe say for a rainy day and just listen, chill out. It's 2020. This year has been a shitstorm. So I feel like that EP is just made to relax to just enjoy.
Can you tell me a little bit about like the title of the EP and where that came from? I feel like it's a little relevant also to the time when you released it.
Yeah, exactly. So that was after we'd all been sent home from Boulder,
Yeah.
from CU. And then I was sitting in my mom's house that summer with nothing to do. I wasn't going to go out and see my friends because I didn't want to get anyone I know sick by chance. So I was just sitting there and I figured I'll just record whatever I can. And even though the summer sucks, I'll make something good out of it. It's a bummer of a summer, And there were a couple other names. The Long March was going to be a contestant because started in March, kept going.
Yeah.
But I think Bummer of Summer has a nice ring to it. And also in Homewrecker, there's a part that says, "But to be honest with you, baby, it's a bit of a bummer." And then the next line or the line before it is like a little mistake that we made in the summer. So, it's a little fun tie-in to the song. And I think it's just got a nice ring to it.
Yeah. How did like those 4 songs come about and like how did you settle on those 4 for being the collection of the EP?
Oh, for sure. I kind of just went with the most accessible and what I thought people would really like. And I think I did a pretty good job in that case, except for Cannery Row. People don't really like Cannery Row. I'm okay with that because I like it personally.
Yeah.
I recorded a lot of music and I wanted to make sure it all had like a generally cohesive sound to it. So all the songs have, a guitar in the back doing rhythm, basic drum beats on them. But they're different enough. One of the songs I took off of the EP is called I don't even know what it's called at this point. It was about technology, but I took it off because it sounded a lot like Homewrecker. The chord progressions were really similar. The beat behind it was really similar. So yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. I think you ended up with a very like cool, cohesive sound. And yeah, I also don't know how exactly to describe it, but
Yeah.
it flows together really nicely. Yeah, so today we're gonna be talking about Girl from Spain, which is the third song off the EP.
Yeah, it's the curveball.
Yeah. Why would you call it that?
Probably because of the flamenco section in the middle
That
of it.
that would do it.
Flamenco. It's not flamenco. It's because I can't make flamenco music. I'm a half white kid from Littleton, Colorado. I have no right to call it I make flamenco. But it's definitely influenced from that, like Gypsy Kings, which my mom listened to, and I listened to. Therefore, Gypsy Kings. The Concierto de Aranjuez is a beautiful, beautiful piece. Miles Davis did a version of it, also really pretty. That both just kind of made me want to do something with that vibe. In that clapping section, it's just a ton of layered claps. Comes kind of out of nowhere, but I think it gives the song the spice it needs.
Yeah. Where do you see Girl from Spain like in its position, like if you call it the curveball, like in like the EP itself, like where do you think it kind of situates within the rest of your music?
In terms of the EP, I think the song is very much like a breath of fresh air. And that's one of the reasons I emphasize like the high end, because I think, right before that song is Homewrecker. And Homewrecker ends with this like really aggressive like disco style, like 16th on the hi-hats. You got 4 on the floor rhythm. There's just a lot of sounds going on when that song ends. And then you end off with a little bleep, bleep, bleeps. There's some reverb. And then you get to Girl from Spain. And Girl from Spain has a really stripped down instrumental. I think it's just guitar, bass, drums, vocals, and then like a little bit of harmony and a lead guitar in the back, but that's it. So it's something nice to just sit back into and breathe in after the giant, not mess, but like all the chaos that Homewrecker got you.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit just about the songwriting process? I think when we were talking earlier, you mentioned that that's one of the ones that you were sitting on for like a long time, especially in comparison to everything else that you were writing.
Yeah. Girl from Spain, I started writing that song when I had my first guitar. Mm-hmm. So it was like my first electric guitar, I should say. So that was like my junior year of high school, maybe sophomore year, something like that. And I wrote just the little hook, the verse of the intro. I gotta go and get myself a pretty little girl from Spain. Ignore the voice crack, but that's it. And I was like, that's really cool. That's great. Where do I go with that? And I had no clue. I really didn't know what I was doing whatsoever. Still don't. But I knew I had like a little nugget there. So I sat on it until I felt like revisiting it, which happened to be during the bummer of a summer. And I got something a little more cohesive.
Yeah. Where did that first little nugget come from? Like, did you have like any like image or story in your head that you were kind of feeling that from?
Yeah, for sure. My sister was an exchange student in Spain at the time, and I was super, super lucky. I got to go to Spain for Christmas, and it's a beautiful country. I went to Granada, saw the Alhambra. Beautiful place. So yeah, it was really cool, and I just had that kind of like it's not exotic, but like the sort of like the foreign, like really strange place like idea just in my head, and how I felt when I was there, and I wanted to kind of capture that, and I think that's why the song has so many themes of like I want to leave this place that I currently am and go somewhere new, go somewhere different to me. So I guess the song in its essence isn't really about an actual girl from Spain.
Right.
It's about Spain and that it's a cool place.
Yeah. I feel like the two emotions, I feel like I'm not gonna be able to say this well, that I kind of picked up on from the song were kind of like a longing and also just like like I think bringing in like the airiness of like the hi-hat and like everything going on with like the percussion section of the song, like it's very like it's like moving forward. Do you feel like those are emotions that you were kind of trying to capture at all?
Yeah, I think that kind of hits it on the nose. All that air on the hi-hat, all the claps, that's really high frequency stuff. And I wanted it almost to feel like there was just like a breeze on top of the track, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
To kind of lift you up and take you somewhere. So yeah, that's actually a great way to put it.
That's really cool. Yeah. Do you feel like the song captures like when you play it, when you sing it, when you listen to it, like is there like a specific like setting that you can like picture from your trip, or just like in general?
I'm not fully sure. Maybe like just a street of Granada, you've got cobblestone beneath your feet, which doesn't happen anywhere in the US. And you packed Vans for some reason, and the soles are super worn out, so your feet hurt, but you don't want to be anywhere else. Because Granada is just a beautiful city. It's a really, really weird place too, because it's been around forever. It's been around since the Moors were in Spain, maybe even before that. I'm not sure about the history, but it's crazy. You can get up on this overlook somewhere and you can see it looks like just someone took a pencil and cut the city in half. And this half is where all the old parts are, all the old buildings, and it's like all stone and stuff. And then you look to the left and it's just like a completely modern city. It's crazy.
So when were you able to go, or when was that?
That was a long time ago. Well, not long, but like 4 years, maybe.
Okay. Yeah. So as you were writing the song, then over like the past 3 years, is that kind of the timeline?
I guess so. I wrote like that first little hook, that first little nugget, recorded it, and then I was looking through the tracks on my in my Pro Tools sessions. Then I heard that and I was like, oh, I could go somewhere with this. So there was a chunk where I just didn't even think about it at all.
Yeah.
And I think that was the perfect time to look back at it during quarantine, because I was stuck in one spot. I couldn't go anywhere. And then that sort of mental escape to a different place was exactly what I needed.
Right. Well, that's interesting. I didn't think about, quarantine and the fact that you really are just trapped.
Yeah, there's just nothing you can do.
Huh. Was it a good, like, kind of emotional release to be able to write about, like, being somewhere else or, like, dreaming of going somewhere else?
I think so. And in pretty much every song except Homewrecker on the EP, you get that sort of feeling. Girl from Spain, you're trying to go after a girl, you're trying to, follow your heart, whatever, all that mushy-gushy stuff. And then in Shangri-La, you're trying to find your way to this spiritual place where you'll find like enlightenment and your soul will be released or whatever. And then in Cannery Row, there's not really a you in the song or an I. But I read the book by John Steinbeck, Cannery Row, and it's got all these characters, all these stories. There's not really a cohesive plot. So it feels really mundane, but that's kind of the nice part about it. It feels like you're somewhere else. You're part of this community where nothing really crazy happens, but there's all these people that you know and love.
That's really cool. I feel like it's a cool theme to kind of see like subtly across the EP also.
Yeah. Honestly, I haven't thought about that beforehand.
Yeah.
But it works out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What sound were you looking for? Like, how did your instrumentals come about in that song or in Girl from Spain?
So I remember I focused a lot on the melody of that song, the melody and the harmony. The rhythm honestly kind of came after, which is ironic because there's a part that relies solely just on like the, those claps layered on top of each other. So focusing on the melody, I remember when I was writing that first little verse, I wanted it to feel like stairs, like you're going downstairs. I gotta go and find myself a pretty little girl from Spain, something like that. And I wanted it to just kind of flow. And then the harmony is actually pretty wacky in some places. It's basically a 1 to 6 or a 6 to 1 in terms of like the chords. It's D minor to F, and then it goes down to B flat, C, then to D minor, which is a 4-5-6, but it kind of acts like a 2-5-1 because in the verse before that you have like a G minor and then there's some
Those are
crazy
wacky,
stuff.
Yeah.
And there's like weird added measures because you have technically a C sharp diminished chord in there at one point. But that's neither here nor there. I just wanted it to sound like it was going somewhere.
Mhm.
Like you're getting driven, like you were saying, like you're getting driven to a point. And I think the melody and the harmony sort of work together to complete that. It started with that melody. So the entire song is built around that that just like hook, the da 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 da, and the chorus. I guess the chorus, to be honest, wasn't as much of a direct result of me thinking about it. It was more of an afterthought. Like I have to have something in the break in the middle of this. And that's when I decided to go into like a Spanish break because I was like, no one's going to understand this. I mean, most people aren't going to understand this. So I can just kind of do whatever I want here. And, I added some mushy lyrics, built the instrumental underneath that. It's really just the same as the verse, but the 6 and the 1 are now 1 and a 6. They're switched. So nothing crazy in that regard. And then the drum beat, I remember, you got a lot of focus on the hi-hat to get that air. The kick is in there every once in a while to drive it. I think either the kick or the snare is following the clave, the dut 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 dut, that part. So yeah, there's that part actually is always in the song if you listen really hard. It's either just in the hi-hat rhythm where the accents are the something like that. And then when it comes back to the claps, I think it's really cool. But yeah, that's essentially how all the instruments came about. I got that melody and I was like, what would sound good underneath it? Went from there.
Yeah, I feel like a really driving factor of the song is like the guitar in it. And I think when you mentioned like the idea of like going downstairs, it really like, I feel like whenever I listen to it, hearing like the guitar solo, like I like before this thought about like going like upstairs because like you like so at one point are just like building back up. Is that just like kind of like a reversal of like the like lyrical melody? Or?
Oh, for sure, yeah. So that clapping part, you can like just think of it more as like as a complete break. You get everything stripped out except the claps, and slowly you add more layers of claps in. And the guitar is kind of just trying to lead you in to the to that last verse. It's like a roller coaster, right? As you're getting brought up, and then you're gonna drop into the last verse.
Yeah. Where did you get like the claps? Like where did that like specific kind of sound come from?
The claps, also something from Spain. One of the coolest musical experiences of my life was seeing like a flamenco show in this cave, like in the middle of nowhere. Because we have family friends in there. Shout out to Luis, great guy. He said, don't go to any of these like touristy locations. I know the spot. And like, granted, it was still touristy because it's that's the image they're selling. So there were tourists there, but it was like super packed. Everyone was shoulder to shoulder in this tiny little cave that probably was just like the size of the studio if you doubled it that way.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And so there were these like 3 women dancing their hearts out. It was incredible. And they're clapping along to this dude playing guitar. He was just going ham. His nails looked like King Kong doesn't have claws. His nails looked like what's something that has claws? Godzilla, sure. His nails look like claws. We'll go with that.
Jake from the back.
Thanks to Jake. Yeah, Godzilla's claws. And after the show, I remember I saw him gluing it back on. Like one of them felt like cracked open.
That's
it was
fun.
really gross, but it was really cool at the same time. But yeah, that's where the claps come from. It was something. It was beautiful just to see him like, because you never really think of rhythm. At least I don't think of rhythm as something that can be particularly like mesmerizing. It's always been like melody and harmony and then like rhythm in the back doing whatever. And I think that really sort of like showed me that, that sort of like it's not polyrhythmic, but that sort of like layering, that sort of cool stacking of different rhythms on top of each other can be a really, really cool audio
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah. It's cool that ends up being like an entire section in your piece, like, or in your song. It's not just like kind of, like a backtrack. It's like it's kind of, it stands on its own, which is very cool.
Yeah.
So this kind of goes back to more lyrics, but you kind of mentioned it, how like with like the Spanish lyrics, you were like, oh, like people, or not as many people will understand this, so I can kind of
Yeah.
do whatever I want. And I feel like I did notice, like listening to it, that they are a lot like mushier than
Yeah.
like the rest of your English lyrics.
Oh,
like,
for sure.
Yeah. Was that purposeful, or like was it just like, I can be mushy here,
Yeah.
and more people will not understand?
I think it's a combination of two things. The first thing is that because I'm not a native Spanish speaker, and because I'm still very much like learning it, it's a lot harder for me to rhyme in Spanish than it is in English. So I was like, all right, I forget what the specific tense is. I think it's like, it's not subjunctive. I don't remember
Haven't taken Spanish in
Yeah.
like 2 years.
I'm taking a Spanish class right now. It's not going very well. Yeah, it's not going terrible. But yeah, I don't remember the specific tenses, but I was like, all right, I'll stick with that and then go with it. And then I think the second factor is that all the Spanish music that I do listen to or have listened to has that kind of like extra cheesiness that I
Mhm.
think a lot of like English music doesn't has, and that's not a bad thing. I would like to clarify. It's just different. So I tried to kind of copy that. All the music my mom listened to when I was a kid, it was all in Spanish, like Serrat, lots of Shakira actually. Like all the Spanish lyrics are very just like either overtly hyper romantic or just sexual as hell. There's no alternative. And so I just kind of like let myself lean into that, and it was pretty fun.
Yeah. How was writing in a different language, in like not your first language?
It was definitely a little exercise for my brain. Pretty tricky to do when, Google Translate definitely helped a lot, not gonna lie. But it was a little bit difficult to just kind of piece everything together and try to get like a coherent message. And I made sure like my mom and sister grammar checked it beforehand, and it might still be wrong for all I know. But it was definitely, it felt kind of more like I was just like slapping things together, and it definitely got more, I've said definitely a lot. It for sure got more cohesive, and it sounded a lot more like an actual lyric towards the end. First drafts were not pretty. They're not good.
Can you talk a little bit about just like the Spanish part of the song, and like just like lyrically, and like what you're kind of conveying through those verses?
Like I said, it's like, it's mushy gushy. No hay nada que yo no haría. Pase lo que pase, me voy a Granada. That's saying there's nothing I wouldn't do. Whatever happens, I'm going to Granada. So it's just like really leaning into the sort of like love ballad, like think like Frank Sinatra, Come Fly With Me, sort of like just this song is about nothing except really being horny, I guess. Like that's what Frank Sinatra was all about. It's not being horny. Like just like really, really wanting another person. And I think that also like goes into the quarantine thing, being alone for so long, living with no one but your mom and your sister. Like, yeah, it sucks.
Yeah.
So I just kind of let myself lean into it and talk about mushy gushy things as much as I wanted. And it was nice.
Yeah. It sounds like the entire song ended up being like a very like cool like escape from quarantine. I don't think I really picked up on that when I like listened to it just on my own.
Yeah, just the entire EP really is what got me through it, because I'd spend the day doing whatever, and at night I'd play Xbox with my friends, but I needed something to do to fill that time, because it was the middle of summer, and I guess the tail end of spring. There was a little bit of school, but not much to do, and I couldn't go out and do anything, so I just spent as much time as I could recording, and it was my release.
How do you feel about it now that like the EP's released and like the song's released? Like, do you think they kind of capture the feelings that you were feeling at the time?
I think they capture kind of what I was wanting to feel,
Yeah.
if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Because like, and Homewrecker is a really risky song. You know, it's about like being in a love triangle and
Yeah.
being the person that ruins a relationship. Not something I have any actual experience in real life. Thank God. But it's just like, I want something exciting. I want something new. I want to go to a new place and have something new happen to me. And I do think the EP does really well at capturing that kind of idea.
It is like your first EP. Like, how did it feel to just release that into the world?
Oh man, when I first released it, I was absolutely terrified. I was
Yeah.
fully prepared for like everyone to just be like, David, this is garbage.
Yeah.
Why did you make this? No
Yeah.
one. Well, obviously like people aren't that mean, but I expected people to be like, well, it's good, you know, the kind of tentative like, I don't want to tell him it's bad.
Right.
But it actually like, I had people reach out to me just from nowhere on Instagram being like, hey, I listened to this. It's great. I like it a lot. My sister's friend's brother is an audio producer down in Denver, and he reached out to me. He was like, hey, this song sounds great. And he said that about Girl from Spain. And, you know, that was a really, really cool moment for me, because that's when I realized like, hey, people don't hate
People
this.
like this. Yeah.
And I think now I'm just incredibly happy that people liked it. And it's not like I didn't have like crazy ratings or anything.
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of streams. Like I still think Shangri-La is my most streamed song because it got put on that playlist. I think it has like, it's still under 10,000. So like nothing crazy. Like,
Was it put on like a Spotify playlist? Or?
not a Spotify specific playlist, but just someone, I think it was, her name is Kira G, put the song on a playlist that had a lot of followers.
Okay. Cool.
So yeah, and that's how it got most of its streams. And yeah, it's still like under 10,000. So I'm not like a superstar or a celebrity by any means. But just the fact that it did even that well is awesome. And I'm still really proud of all the work I did on that. And now I can only hope to, you know, do that same thing or better.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you have a direction that you're trying to move forward into now, or anything that new that you're working on?
Not particularly. I'm working on a couple of things. Whether or not I'll put them out is still up in the air. I guess it really just comes down to whether or not I think it fits the aesthetic. I've run into that problem a lot. Like the other day, I wrote a song and I started recording it, and I was like, "Wow, this is great! I love it. People are gonna dig this." And then I realized that it's like kind of a grunge song, because I was listening to a lot of Nirvana at the time.
Yeah.
And I listened to the whole thing, and I said, "Wow, this is not. I can't put this out because it's way out of left field."
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's out of nowhere. So, you know, it's definitely something I'm figuring out how to balance, because I don't want to start releasing like the same thing. Like I don't want to just be any other indie band just slapping a chorus pedal on a guitar and like calling it good, you know? So I want to keep introducing new things, and I think I want to start getting like more, I don't think genuine's the right word, but we'll use it for now, more genuine with my lyrics, because a lot of the lyrics, like Homewrecker, you know, I've never been in a situation like that.
Yeah.
So I want to write things that are more real, more like actually applicable to me as a person. And it's definitely a fine line. It's also working on just like being emotionally vulnerable for long enough to get those lyrics down, you know?
Right.
But yeah, you know, I will release more music by the end of the year is the deadline I've given myself. And hopefully it's good.
Yeah. Do you have any long-term dreams or like anything that you or really I don't know how to phrase that question. Where do you want to go?
Yeah, that's something I ask myself a lot.
Yeah.
I'm currently double majoring in molecular bio and Spanish, and on top of that, I'm trying to get like either a music tech or music entrepreneurship certificate. So if that doesn't tell you that I'm bad at making like specific decisions, I don't know what does, because none of those things are related to each other. um, Obviously, like the dream is to become like a rock star and then go on tours and sell out the Pepsi Center or whatever. That'd be awesome, but not always the most realistic dream to have. So I'm just gonna keep making music for now, and if it picks up, it picks up. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I'll keep making music after that. Yeah, that's my plan for now.
Yeah. I feel like that's a good plan.
It's good enough for me.
Yeah. Cool. I think that's, as I said, I don't know how to end this, but I think that's all I have. Do you have any last comments or anything that you want us to have in here?
Just to any folks listening in, thank you. I suppose that's it.
Oh,
This has been
Crave the Sound.
Crave the Sound.
Crave the Podcast.
Crave the Sound, the podcast.
Crave.
Thanks for tuning in.
Do you want to do the ending?
Sure. That works.
This has been Crave. Oh wait. This has been Crave the Podcast.
This has been Crave the Podcast. And thank you very much for tuning in.
Yay! Woo!
Crave the Podcast is produced by myself, Jake Trujillo, and Zac Clement. Be sure to follow Crave the Sound on Instagram. Also make sure to subscribe to Crave the Podcast on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you like to listen. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening.